Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start the Michael Heiser Foundation live stream, and we have an incredible guest today. And obviously, we're going to have our president and official host, Dina, with us as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Please just, share this. Let everybody know that we are live, and make sure that you have fun. Make sure that you have some questions for our guest today. And we're going to be talking about a little bit of everything, so it's gonna be phenomenal. And as usual, we try to do this to let you know what's going on here in the foundation and all the great ideas that we have for the future and all the projects that we have for the future. So without further ado, let me go ahead on and start this show. Howdy everybody, and welcome. My name is Jorge Gil. I am the co-host and producer of this show, and as usual, we have our main host, Dina Heiser, here with us, and we have a really special guest, someone who was deeply influenced by Mike's work and has been putting that influence to good use. We are going to be talking about his journey in theology, his connection to Mike, and his brand new book. So whether you are a longtime fan of the Divine Council worldview and the unseen realm, you're just discovering it for the first time, you are going to want to stick around. And Dina, I'll give it to you, and you go ahead on and let us know more about this show today.
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for being here. It's such a privilege to come before you again on this Thursday evening. And I'm really excited about the guest that we have on tonight. And first of all, you might notice the background is a little different here. I am in our Pennsylvania house. Mike and I purchased this house actually 4 months before he passed away. He wanted to come back to his hometown of Lebanon, where he grew up, and he ran the streets here, playing sports in the alleys and going to his favorite comic shops and his baseball card shop. So at the end of his life, he was really nostalgic, and he wanted just to come back here. And so we decided to buy this house. And sadly, he never got to live in this house. But the idea was I was going to move back here after he passed, because I have all my family here. I have a support group here. I have friends here. And Florida, we had just been there for 3 years. So we haven't really established a huge support group and friend group yet. And so I was going to move back here. But then why leave Florida? I mean, really. So, and then I met my husband, and my kids, 2 of my kids live there. And so I've really decided to stay there. And so this house now I'm turning into an Airbnb, and also it's going to be hopefully used for missionaries who are on furloughs with their families. They have a respite here in this area. I want to give back to the Lord all the blessings that he's blessed my life with, and I want to give back. And so hopefully this house is going to be used for those purposes. It is an old, it was built in 1910, so it's beautiful, and it's got a lot of great woodwork. And so anyway, so I'm here right now. I was just putting bidets on the toilets before I hopped on.
We were having a conversation about bidets, and actually it was really funny you talking about Airbnb, and I was literally, as we were trying to get together and get this going, I was talking to one of my frequent Airbnb guys. We're empty nesters, so why not, right? We're using our home to do some Airbnb, and I know you've been here, you've been to the studio. And it's the joys of being a side hustle entrepreneur with the Airbnb, and you got to make sure that your guests have a bidet. Yeah. We were waiting for our guests talking about bidets and Airbnb. So I when I grow up, Dina, I want to be like you and Mike. You guys were just so given. And you still continuing that, and I want to be able, now that you say, hey, we want to use this Airbnb for for people that are doing missions and things like that. I never thought about that. I have plenty of room. I want to do that as well. So you're definitely an inspiration to all of us and to all of the Heiserites on the other side of the screen. But why don't I let you introduce our special guest?
All right. Well, it is a privilege and an honor to introduce this young man to you guys. He's not new to this community, obviously. He's active at Blurry Creatures. He was active with Mike Heiser, and he's just all over the place. And I'm just honored to have him here. He is traveling, but he graciously decided that he would take an hour out of his time, his travel time, to hop on with us. And he is Dr. Joel Muddamalle, the author of The Unseen Battle. Hi, Joel. It's so nice to have you here.
Oh my goodness. The only thing better is if we were together and I could feel the warmth of that fireplace behind you.
I know. Like, really? Oh, that way. There we go.
There you go. That's amazing. Gina, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with you guys.
Oh, I'm so excited that you are here. And you are in such high demand. And it is an honor and a privilege to call you a friend and to call you a peer with Mike Heiser. And so, I just want to start off by saying thank you for being here, and I love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would just want to jump in and right away and just ask you about your faith journey. And I don't even know that. I don't know how you came to Christ. And so just tell us about your faith journey and a little bit about your family.
Yeah. So, Gina, I'm Indian, right?
Yeah.
My grandparents are actually missionaries in India. And so kind of a pretty amazing story. India is not a highly populated Christian, country, nation. And yet the gospel spread. There was a time in India called the British Indian Raj, where the Brits had essentially taken over India. And in the midst of so much pain and colonization and kind of the suffering of that, God has a tendency to use even those things as a means by which to expand his goodness and his glory. And so a byproduct of that time period is that the gospel spread in India. The good news of Jesus spread. And there were some missionaries who had went to India, and my grandfather actually was a recipient of the gospel. And so he was orphaned. His father died, and it was just his mom. And there was a British missionary family that came, the Slater family, that offered to give him an education. And it was a Christian school. And so it was the only opportunity really that my grandfather had. And in it, he heard the gospel for the first time. The Lord saved him from a Hindu background and culture. And kind of just, he was enamored with the story of scripture. And so that family ended up dying in India, and they had accumulated some land and some resources, and they essentially named my grandfather as the administrator for all of that land, with the sole purpose of utilizing it for further gospel work. So interestingly enough, you're talking about your house there that you're renovating and you're using as an Airbnb for missionaries, and that's literally how my grandparents survive, how they were able to continue their work in ministry, is people like you who have done work like that in order to support missions. And so my grandfather just celebrated his 90th birthday. I know, wild. And he outpaces me. When we go to India, he's like up at 5 a.m. and he's like, Joey, let's go. We're going to the villages, we're preaching the gospel. And that man has an ability to take a 45-minute nap, and it re-energizes his whole body, and he goes until sundown, And so really, really special to be able to grow up in an environment where really the story of Jesus was all around me. And I spent 2.5 years in India. I was born in the Chicagoland area, spent 2.5 years in India while my mom finished nursing school. And my first language is actually Telugu. Kind of just was a shadow to my grandpa. Everywhere he went and preached the gospel, I was just there. And I think, now looking back on all that, Dina, I would say that I experienced, probably not intentionally, but I experienced the reality of spiritual warfare and kind of that whole cosmic worldview in the context of Hinduism, the caste system. That was an intricately fundamental part of my grandparents' ministry, and I just kind of grew up in it, and I saw it, and I saw how the gospel freed people from entrenchment to these false gods in India. And so I grew up and wanted to become a lawyer, wanted to get married and have 2.5 kids and the white picket fence. And somewhere along the way, I read the Odyssey and I read Homer's The Iliad, and I became fascinated with mythology. And then things just started to connect for me. I was like, wait a minute, the greatest story that was ever told, that the Odyssey and Homer's The Iliad and these Norse myths and Mesopotamian myths and all this stuff, they're all plagiarizing the one true story, which is the story of Scripture, the story of the Bible. And I was like, what would happen if I read the Bible in the same way that I'm reading these other stories that are captivating and trying to get to the author's intended meaning? And so that was a long journey that took me from a senior in high school that then decided that I wanted to go into Bible college. Went to Bible college, got married. I married a gal named Brittany, and Brittany's uncle is a guy named Scott Lindsay, who I know this audience knows very well.
Yeah,
So
Scott.
Scott's actually at the conference right now, and so that I'm at as well. And so so my wife was Scott and Michelle's flower girl at their wedding. And pretty amazing. Scott told me about this Bible software company called Logos Bible Software. And he was like, Joel, you got to apply. You got to come over here. You've got, a passion for God's word. I led worship back then. And I actually came up for his daughter Taylor's wedding. And while I was there for Taylor's wedding is when I interviewed with Bob and Dan, and Phil Gons was there at the time. I'm not sure if Phil's still there. But that's how I ended up at Logos Bible Software, and ended up doing my seminary degree while I was there at Knox Theological Seminary. And I went in and I met this iconic figure that everybody talked about in every hallway that I went, and it was the scholar in residence named Dr. Michael Heiser.
That's awesome. So well, before we jump into that story, just tell me a little bit about your family. I know you've got a whole passel full of kids. So
that's right. So my wife Brittany and I have been married for 16 years. We have lived in 4 different places. So we've lived in Sacramento, California, and that took us to Bellingham, Washington, which I know we'll talk about here in a second. We did a short stint in Illinois, in Chicago, for about 2.5 years, until I met a gal named Lisa Turkhurst. And Lisa's a prolific Bible teacher, and I was actually working for Logos Bible Software at the time. And Lisa asked me this question after she heard me do kind of my Logos presentations. And she just said, Joel, when are you going to just fully focus on teaching the Bible? And I was like, well, and she kind of presented to me like, hey, here's what we're looking for at the ministry. We think that you'd be a perfect fit. And I was like, Lise, you need somebody with a PhD. And I just have an MDiv, a seminary degree. And so here are some recommendations for some other people. And she goes, no, we really want you to consider this, and what would happen if we create space for you to do your PhD. And at that point, Brittany and I had been married. We had 3 little boys, Liam, Levi, and Lucas. They were like 5 and 3, and Luki was just born, like 11 months old. And we're like, there's no way. Like, how could I do a PhD program and work full time? And Lisa was like, we'll create the space for your PhD program to be a part of your work and your vocation. And so that's what happened. I spent the next 6.5 years working for Proverbs 31 Ministries, worked on my PhD, earned a PhD under Dr. Patrick Schreiner was my first reader, and Mike was my second reader. And then, I've been with with Proverbs since. I've been there almost 10 years now. And so we have since then added another child. And so our daughter, so 3 boys.
Got your girl.
We got our girl, and she was born on Valentine's Day, literally like 3 weeks before the world shut down with COVID. And so our little girl, her name is
Did you
Amelia
know Valentine's Day is Mike's birthday?
I did, yeah, I know. Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
I know, so MJ was born on Mike's birthday, yep.
That's awesome. Well, your family's beautiful, and I was privileged enough to meet you guys when you were in Bellingham, and you had your first little boy, Liam, I guess, and then I remember Brittany was pregnant with your second little guy, and you got to meet him as a little baby. And so beautiful family, and Brittany's cooking is amazing. She's called the almost Indian wife, and she truly can cook like an Indian. It's amazing. I love her food. So great. Well, thank you for that. I know our audience just loves to hear these, just the humanity and the personhood of these amazing guests that we have on. And so it's just nice to know you're a family guy, you love your kids, and you're, coaching your kids lacrosse team or whatever. So that's amazing.
Lacrosse, basketball. Emmy starts gymnastics. I don't even know what it means to be a gymnastics dad, but I'll research it and figure it out. Like it is full, but it's exciting.
Great.
I'm grateful for this family that I have.
Well, you know what? It is amazing to just know that you were born with God having a purpose for you through your grandfather, and then through your just your schooling and how you were drawn to him through leading worship. And so it's basically been your lifestyle since you've been a tiny little tot. And honestly, you really can tell your dedication and your depth. You have such a depth, and Mike had that depth, but he only started at 16. He became a Christian at 16. So he had a lot of catching up to do, but I can see your depth there as well. And that's why I love talking to you and listening to you. So, all right. So we're going to, I want to ask about your DCW watershed moment and how that morphed and affected you.
Yeah. So I'll pick up where I said there was this iconic figure when I came to Logos Bible Software, and his name was Dr. Michael Heiser. And in full disclosure, I had never heard of Mike up until that point. I came up in a tradition that now when I look back at it, I would describe the tradition as being a demythologizing kind of tradition. I would describe it as, God can do the miraculous. He just doesn't do them anymore. The Holy Spirit can do anything, but the Holy Spirit doesn't do the charismatic gifts anymore. Like it was almost that we wanted to love the cosmic Christ of the scriptures, but we were uncomfortable with anything cosmic anywhere else,
Exactly.
And so that was my background. So I remember coming in, and I worked on a project called Faith Life Study Bible, and Mike was a major contributor, wrote many articles and study notes for the Faith Life Study Bible, and it was my job to kind of help promote it and to market it. And I remember reading Mike's article on Psalm 82, and I remember thinking, this could be heresy. Like, this could be heresy. And I was like young punk seminary kid, and just newly minted. And I walked up. I remember exactly, Mike's office was in the Flatiron Building, the third floor over there. He had the coolest spot. I remember walking in and sitting down in his office, and he had that sign, parking for Semitic scholars only or Hebrew scholars only. And I remember questioning him. Hey, I don't know how I'm supposed to market this. The sons of God being angelic beings, and the thing I remember about Mike was his compassion and his he was not reactive with me. Which, if I were Mike at that time, I'd have been like, hey, buddy, and I would have opened up the Hebrew Bible and put it in front of me and be like, parse that out. Like, I would have gone hard in the paint, But I remember Mike looked at me and he goes, so who do you think the sons of God are? It's like, sit down. Who do you think the sons of God are? And I sat down and I regurgitated everything that I thought I knew about the sons of God. And he's so smart. He's like, oh, okay. So those are what other scholars say about the sons of God. But what do you think about the sons of God based off of this text alone? And at that moment, I realized that I knew more about the Bible from what other people said about the Bible than understanding the Bible on its own terms. And I would say that was my watershed moment of where Mike used rhetorical strategy. It's like classic rabbi, and he just questioned me. He questioned what I thought I knew. And it wasn't like this massive, I now see the drum 32 worldview everywhere in but it was a marked moment of my life that the Lord used to almost put a pin in, that then had just moments year after year in situation after situation that I always looked back to and said, wait a minute, I think there's more to the things that Mike was teaching and writing than I even understood, now that I'd opened kind of that door of a lens of understanding the Bible in its own ancient Near Eastern context and the New Testament in its own Greco-Roman context. And so I would say that was my watershed moment. The other watershed moment was playing fantasy football in Mike's league and realizing I would never do that again, because that was the wildest league I'd ever played. Mike had decibels. He did the points to the decibel, and he
I
had full
know.
defensive teams. I was like, what? This is wild. I can't do this.
Hey, can I
That
ask
was
a
the other
question?
watch.
Can I ask a question real quick related to that you just said? Because now you are one of the top guys in the DCW, meaning you are furthering Mike's work, and I mean you had the blessing to work with him at Logos, to study under him. Has the DCW ever taken you somewhere in the scripture that you really weren't expecting to go? Because I know we always have that.
Yeah,
With
Genesis 126. Or hey, are you kidding me? Like everywhere.
Go. Give us a couple of examples, because I mean I have had those experiences,
Yeah.
as a still ongoing seminary student. But you have your PhD, you have done the digging. So share with us some of those places where you've gone where you're like, whoa.
I mean, I wrote papers. I wrote PhD papers arguing that Genesis 126 was a Trinitarian verse. Presuming that. I didn't even argue for it. Now that I look back, I've even read it recently. I'm like, this is bad. Like, this is bad scholarship. This is bad writing. But it's an exposing, once again, that even at the highest level, at the PhD level, that you can presume to know something when you haven't searched out the text. Now, I want to be careful, and I want to be honest and humble and say, I know that there are theological, exegetical, grammatical reasons for why people would hold to a Trinitarian view of the let us, of let us make man in our image in Genesis 1:26. And I would say that if we're honest with the text and we're honest with the arguments for a divine counsel understanding, we don't have to put these two things antithetical or opposed to each other, which I think is such a tendency in today's world. Is we want to combat doctrines against each other versus looking and seeing, is there a way for them to be in symmetry with each other? So for instance, I would say, does Genesis 1:26 have in mind the Trinity? I'd say, of course. How could it not? God is ontologically triune. Of course it's the Trinity. Then I would say, but is that what Genesis 1:26 in its ancient Near Eastern context and the grammar primarily pointing to? To that which I would say now, no. This is a divine plural. This is a majesty of plural. This is a recognition that God as a king is creating and making a divine pronouncement speech, and then going on to do the act individually, which Genesis 1:27 affirms. Let us make man in our image. And then it moves from the plural to the singular. And
To the
God
singular.
singularly
Yeah.
makes man.
Created.
And then, just in case anybody has it twisted, then says, and he made woman in his image, just in case you want to do some, anti-feminine thing there. It's like, no, the grammar and the Bible and the theology doesn't allow for that. Man and woman ontologically created in the likeness and image of God. And the let us is this beautiful divine pronouncement of the cosmic king of heaven and earth, letting all of creation, including his divine counsel, know that it's kind of like MJ, who is about to do a fadeaway. He would do the shoulder shrug, and you would know every time he did the shoulder shrug that he was about to shoot a fadeaway and hit the game winner. And that's what I kind of feel like what Yahweh was doing. He was like, let us, and then watch me at work individually. And so that would be like one example. The other probably big example for me, of course, is Genesis 6, the sons of God. These are these classic, iconic spots that are so deeply entrenched at times in evangelical theology that it is a presumed doctrine that doesn't look at the original Hebrew understanding, the Jewish tradition, and at times having to challenge early church fathers that we often take wholesale. I want to point this out, and I think it's important for me to say this, especially on this platform, Gina, with you and with Jorge. Sometimes Mike gets a bad rep that he just discounted the church fathers and he didn't like them and he just like poo-pooed on them and this and that, to which I would say you haven't read him or listened to him thoroughly. Mike had the utmost respect for them. Now, Mike was just like anybody else, and he had a little bit of a flair to him, which I love. I have a flair where I talk about MJ versus LeBron. Mike had a flair, and his flair, he'd pick on the church fathers at time, which I kind of love, to remind us that the church fathers were human. They
Mm-hmm.
had their own limitations. Augustine, sadly, didn't have the level of Hebrew that he himself wishes that he had, which led him to understand Psalm 82 incorrectly, which also there's a background with Augustine, with his background in Manichaeism, and that whole Manichaean tradition really loved the Enochic tradition. And so I think there was a hidden agenda that Augustine kind of was just like, I want to further myself from anything that's Enochic in Genesis 6 as possible because of his agenda against these. Now, we should be able to look at that and say, okay, Augustine was incredible in City of God. He got Genesis 6 wrong. He got Psalm 82 wrong. And that is not a wholesale discounting of Augustine. And that's part of my concern of the theological world that we live in today. It's like you take everything or you take nothing. We're living in a polarization versus saying, man, we're limited humans doing the best that we can to know an
Mm-hmm.
infinite God, and we need to seek out the scriptures on their own terms. And instead of defending a system wholesale, just fight for the text. And that's what Mike
Mm.
did. He wanted us to fight for the text on his own
Mm.
terms. And if that pits you against your favorite church father in one area, yeah, I would kind of say, this is just me speaking. I would say that's probably an indication of some kind of idolatry there that you're going to have to deal with,
Good.
because your favorite church father doesn't get to trump the context of the scriptures on its own terms. Now you need to seek it out, and so for me it was Genesis 6, sons of God. Of course, they're human rulers. I'm like, well, now it's like, yeah, no, that's not how it works. I just taught this in a seminar where we have this principle of taking obscure passages of scripture and translating them based off of what is the most clear. So when you have that Hebrew phrase, Benaha Elohim, excuse me, Benaha Elohim, you want to ask the question in Genesis 6, where else do we find this phrase and where is it used clearly? And fascinating, it's found 3 times in Job. Job 1, Job 2, and Job 38. And in Job 38, without a doubt, there is no question about it. It's the morning star shouting for joy and the sons of God proclaiming and exclaiming. It's like, these are not some human rulers that were transported into the heavens at the beginning of time to shout. Like, what? You could not come to a coherent answer for that. There's only one answer based off of the context, and it's angelic beings, supernatural beings shouting for joy. That's the same phrase that's used in Job 1 of the divine assembly, where the sons of God present themselves to Yahweh. It's restated in Job 2, and it's stated in Genesis 6 and in Psalm 82. So if we take the clearest reading of the text in Job and we apply it to the obscure passages, you would end with a supernatural reading of the phrase sons of God. There's much more that we could do, obviously, with exegesis and grammar, and but I mean, just a simple reading of the text actually kind of gets us there. So that was my other one, was probably Genesis 6. And then the third one is my area that I work to expand on Mike's work. The thing that I just so wish that Mike was here for was, honestly, people are going to laugh, but to critique the unseen battle. Like, I wish he was here to be able to be like, hey, I liked what you did here. Not quite sure about how you handled the Pauline text in light of the Hebrew understanding. Like Mike was so good in that area, and that was the thing that I was so excited for as his PhD student, was to help expand his research into New Testament studies, into Pauline studies. And so for me, it is the idea of the powers and principalities in the New Testament, where whenever those ideas of principalities, powers, authorities came up, I always had a flat reading of them just being human rulers. Like First Corinthians, like, if the powers and authorities knew what they were doing, they would have never sent Jesus to the cross. Who are the powers and authorities? I was always like, well, it's the Romans and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, of course. And now I go, wait a minute, Paul uses archon in a very specific way to refer back to Daniel 10 of the Prince of Persia and the Prince of Greece. And these are terms that refer to cosmic supernatural beings equivalent to the sons of God of the Old Testament. And Paul's a good Jewish boy, and he's pulling from a Hebraic tradition. And instead of reading the text flat, it's like, is it talking about the Romans and the Pharisees and Sadducees? Well, of course, but not only them. There are dark powers behind human authorities and human powers, and we are deceived. I think I want to say that strongly. We are deceived if we limit all of this to just an earthly context. We're missing the entire unseen battle that is actually being waged in front of us.
Well, you guys, we were just schooled. I'm going to start calling you Junior after Dr. Heiser Jr.
Stop.
My new name for you is Junior.
You're too kind.
Oh, that's great. So that leads me into the unseen battle. Like, now that was based a little like mostly on your dissertation, right? And then you just expanded it and made it into a book. So I want to know about, I know that there was a time, I think I heard you saying when Mike was writing his critique or helping you, I don't know what that's called, your reader of your dissertation and giving you some helpful notes, that you actually made him think about some things that he hadn't thought about. I'm like, that's great. So can you like give us an example of that, and then just take us through the writing of the unseen battle and where it challenged you and how long it took you, and that.
So that particular section is when I was dealing with the household gods, the teraphim, with Rachel and Laban and that whole story. And, I remember I have in fact, I think we're going to do this, Dina, that if people join the Heiser Foundation book study, I'm going to send you guys the digital PDF that our publisher
I was going to
created.
ask you for that.
Yep. I'm going to send you, and it actually has Mike's critiques and like areas of celebration and like affirmation. But I kind of think it's important as a scholar and a theologian. I want people to see the keen eye that Mike had of how he critiqued in such a way that was honest but also uplifting and encouraging. That was the thing that so surprised me in my process. I kind of just thought that Mike was just going to destroy me consistently, and he had the capacity to it. But man, he was so kind and honest and never let me off the hook. Both him and Patrick, they never let me off the hook, but they pushed me to deeper and better scholarship, And so there's a PDF that we created that's basically like reading Mike's cliff notes of my dissertation. And there's a section in there that actually, we have the longest section for the unseen battle in the appendix that we put to the back. That's the more scholarly context. It's summarized in the book, but it's the section on the household gods, the teraphim. And basically I found some research from a Hittite scholar that created some linguistic connections between some Hittite terms and the Hebrew term shadim, and then connecting it to the household terminology that's used of the sons of God and temple deities. And basically, when I first started down this road, Mike commented and said, I can't remember the exact phrase, but basically abandon ship, like don't go down this road, like the Nutsi kind of ancestral deity thing is well understood. I don't see how you're going to make this argument. It's going to make your dissertation weak. Like basically unless you're really passionate about this, I would advise you not to go down this road. And it was the one time, Dina, that I was like, I think I've got something here. Like, I think I can argue this case. And so I kept going down that road. And when he reviewed that section, he goes, wow, basically, this I did not know this. This was personally helpful to me. And I just was like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that, And so that was a really big encouragement to me. And the process of taking a dissertation and writing it into a trade book is one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do, honestly. You don't write a dissertation to be read by the everyday average Bible reader,
right.
even the Bible reader who cares deeply about theology. Like a lot of people have asked in the past for my dissertation, and I'm like, I think you can find it here and here, and they grab it, and then they're like, I really can't read this, like you have to leave Greek terms untranslated, Hebrew terms, you kind of have to know a lot of the scholarship, the footnotes are, it's just a lot. There's no creativity. I learned this very quickly in dissertation writing. You're not trying to be like creative, because if you're creative, you're imprecise. And if you're imprecise, you're going to get dinged in your dissertation. So you don't want to be creative in your language. And so I kind of had to take something that was meant for a very particular domain and shift it, because my passion has always been something that Mike was passionate about, which is taking top shelf theology, making it accessible without losing any of its substance. And that actually takes a significant amount of work. Mike was able to do it very cerebrally. I've learned to do that over the years, and I'm still growing in my ability to do that. And this was a big exercise of taking deep scholarship and repackaging it keeping the substance of it, but trying for people to have a journey that's a bit pastoral along the way. And so I would say if people were like, well, what's the difference between the unseen battle and the unseen realm? I would say Mike was a legit scholar, and he was doing legit scholarly work all the way through, you know? I'm doing I'm taking scholarship and theological work, and I'm trying to weave in some pastoral biblical theological ahas along the way. And so it's a bit different than what you've got with the unseen realm. And so I think that is also what separates me as a person from Mike.
Right.
Mike was a tier one scholar. Mike always use those phrases. He loves to collect dots, connect dots, and communicate the dots. I have learned that Mike has collected so many dots. I don't even know that I need to collect any dots. I just want to gather up all the things that he collected. And I know we've got some fun projects that we're thinking about in the future, Dina, with the foundation. But then I want to kind of help communicate them, and bring that intense research that Mike did and communicate it to the wider world.
That's great. Well, how long did it take you to write The Unseen Battle?
From reworking the dissertation to getting it into first round of editorial. I mean, so it was about a 2-year project, I would say. From getting it in and through, and a lot of editorial. I want to shout out to my editor, Ryan Pastor. Ryan was so supportive of this project, like heroically supportive of the project, because Ryan himself was so strongly influenced by Mike as well. So there's a lot that I didn't have to prove because Ryan already had gone through it. So I'm just very grateful for Zondervan Reflective and for Ryan and for the team's vision in this project and in this book. But it took a lot of work from the entire team because, like I said, it was a team effort of taking something that was written as a dissertation and trying to communicate in a way that was winsome and had a story arc, to kind of finish out, and a lot of stuff left untouched. So I've got some ideas on what book 2 will be, but
there'll be another book, and that's awesome. Yeah, I was honored to meet Ryan at BlurryCon this year, and he was very supportive of your work and Mike's work, and I had lunch with him a couple of times. Just a really sweet, humble, down to earth guy, and but he pushes for scholarship, and I love that. It's amazing all the connections that there are between us all, and it's just so great. Yeah. So my next question I have for you is, I know you've been a student for a long, long time, and I know you've written lots of stuff before you found out, you became a scholar in the DCW mindset. So is there anything that you wrote that you wish you could, oh gosh, I wish I could go back and rewrite this, or have you come across that?
I mean, I would say it's just little pieces of stuff that I've written in the past where it might be looking at a scene that has the gods of the nations and just absolutely ignoring that there are real ontological evil beings that are there. Anytime I've ever written on the Trinity, like I said about Genesis 1:26, not building an entire Trinitarian theology on a verse that actually has in mind a divine counsel kind of worldview, So I would say that there's it's not like there was one piece of writing that I've written that I want to go back and rework or redo. But to your point, the influence of the Deuteronomy 32 worldview, once you see it, it's like you can't unsee it. And every time that I'm going through the Bible and just reading, there's elements of the cosmic worldview and God as a divine king having a counsel that just makes the Bible make sense to me in a way. And so there's just little pockets of things. I mean, I'm teaching tomorrow night here at Kerygma Conference, and I'm going to teach on Revelation 2. And I'm going to give a Deuteronomy 32 worldview shout out because you've got these 7 churches, and talks about these 7 stars that are being held in the hands of Jesus. And it's like, well, who are the 7 stars? And scholars have debated forever the identity of the 7 stars. Is it bishops? Is it pastors? Is it human rulers? It's angels. It's angelic beings. Of course it's angelic beings, It fits an Old Testament. And Revelation is like giving millions of echoes back to the Old Testament, it feels like. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when you look at Deuteronomy 4:19 and elsewhere, you've got the issue of the stars and whether, and the, anyways, I can go on and on, but I would
Yeah.
say it's places like that where once
Yeah.
you see it, you can't unsee it.
Well, we love it. We love hearing you. And I want you to know, we see you, Dr. Joel Muddamalle, as your own person and your own scholar. It's every interview I see you in, they always ask about Mike Heiser, and you're so gracious to talk about him. But, we see you as your own scholar, and you're bringing a lot more and something different to theology and to our circles that we need and we love. So I just want you to know that,
Thank you.
that you don't always have to be in his shadow and you shine on your own, but I am going to start calling you Junior.
Oh my
So,
gosh. It is the greatest honor for me. I don't know that I'll ever want to share and talk without giving honor to where honor is due. And so
oh, thank you.
we get to stand on the shoulders of, and I know Mike would say the same, of those that came before him. And so
Yeah.
what a brilliant, amazing reality that we're all standing on the shoulders of each other, trying to point people to the
Mm-hmm.
one who is the matchless King of
Amen.
Heaven, Jesus.
Amen.
It
That's
is
beautiful.
true.
Yeah, thank you,
It's so
Drina, for
true.
that. It's just so heartwarming to hear you say that about Joel. Like I said, I get to play a small part in all of this, but I know how. And I want to say this, in Joel, you can second me here or back me up. But for people like us, and Joel, you already did all the heavy lifting, so you have earned your place, in the scholarly world. But for people like us, it is the premier, how can I say, compliment to connect us with Mike. It is the premier compliment. We understand that we're never gonna be Mike, but we don't have to be, because he actually was the kind of man that who will pass the baton, and he knew this. And there's so many out there popping up, following Joel's steps and building on what Mike pretty much got started. So it is a flood coming. I guarantee you, it's a flood coming, and Mike was the head of all of this. And it is we say this with pride and joy to be able
Yeah.
to follow up on this. So, I mean, Joel, what a compliment for Drina to say you Junior, man. That is phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm gonna need a hat. I'm gonna need a hat, Jorge.
Oh, I
Send me
got
a
you. I
hat.
got you.
How's that?
Just text me. I got you. It's funny because I just, I'm very picky with when it comes to merch. And actually, I got to talk to you about that off camera. But I'm very picky, and I finally found a local, a place where we're gonna be doing some phenomenal stuff moving forward. I mean, we're really gonna take over for the DCW, with your channel and here at the Foundation channel. And I'm just blessed to be able to have the trust and the support of both of you guys in what we do. But you're definitely gonna get a special one of one Heiserite hat as well, because we're gonna have the ones mass produced, but you and Drina get to have a one of one. You know what I mean?
I just need mine to say, Drina said I'm a junior.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
The one of
Yeah,
one.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll get that. But continue, guys. I just wanted to interrupt to say that.
Well, that's good. Well, my last question is, what do you have coming down the pipe? Is there anything you can tell us about? Anything exciting?
Oh gosh, I am thinking about book 2 for the follow-up for the Unseen Battle. I've got a couple trajectories that I'm thinking on where I want to go. I can give maybe some general hints at it, but I guess I can say it's going to deal with some giants. So I'll leave it. I'll leave it at that.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
I
that
know,
sounds
right?
fun, guys.
And then
I know publishers are very, like, I have some stuff coming Mike related as well, and they're very like, don't tell anybody about this, keep it under wraps. And I'm like, I want to say stuff, but you kind of can't.
I'm like, is Ryan watching this, and he's gonna be like, why? Because
it's
very early. Like, we're just very early now. But I think I've got some ideas. And then the other big project that I've been working on that you guys know of is the Stranger Theology project. It's on Substack. We just finished season 1 of the Cosmic Mountain, and that releases a premium episode releases once a month. And it's really my desire to take a podcast, but present it in a way that is in between a podcast and seminary, like sitting in seminary class with me. And so like I go through screen shares and I highlight and annotate logos and do Hebrew Greek stuff and maps. And it's with the Blurry Creatures guys. And so it's always fun because you get kind of like the theological nerdiness that I bring to the table, but they always bring the crazy questions and bring me back down to paranormal activity and Bigfoot, and so and we have a team, Gina, I'm really excited. We have a team of in-house theologians and scholars that dear friends. I know for you guys, Doug Van Dorn and Dr. Judd Burton and others that are writing consistently for the Substack. That is my attempt, my hope, our dream is to extend the worldview of the divine council in Deuteronomy 32 in an inflection point, that will reach maybe a different kind of audience and then also be a benefit to the core audience as well. And so that Stranger Theology project is something very near and dear to my heart. And I think we're going to be together in August at some point. And I'm excited to present some opportunities and ideas to you guys on some fun partnership stuff for that.
Awesome. Well, you guys, you heard it. You heard Dr. Joel Muddamalle and how he can just speak with passion and love and dedication on his scholarly work. And, his excitement, it's catchy. I mean, I have goosebumps right now, literal, because it's just catchy to hear someone who loves the Lord and loves scripture so much like Mike did. I'm not comparing, but he did it. And when I would hear Mike talk, I would get goosebumps because just like when Joel talks, it's like, there's such an excitement and a love and a deep, deep dedication. And that's contagious. And I just love it. And you guys, if you want to hear more with Dr. Muddamalle, you guys need to sign up for the conference coming in Denver, Colorado, October 9th and 10th. There was an unfortunate thing that happened. We were using a conference kind of like website builder, Eventify. What happened was they do not like religious conferences, so they banned us.
No way.
They kept our money for a while, and we had to hound them and we just got our deposit back, and it was like $2,000. But yeah, so that was shocking to think that there are big conference event planner companies that they do this for a living, and because it was a religious conference, they banned us. So now we're at square one. So we are researching who can we use next. So our registration platform is not ready. We thought it would be ready last week, and so this unfortunate thing happened. So now we're scrambling, but Joel is confirmed, and if you want to hear more of Joel and meet him in person, come to the conference.
And I'm very excited for this session because this session is going to be I don't even know if I'm allowed to share this, but I'm working on a project that's something very special for Mike, and my main topic session is a piece of that, which is connecting Psalm 82 with what I believe is the fulfillment of Psalm 82 in the New Testament. So
I'll great.
Awesome. Dina,
amazing.
How about we take some questions from the audience? The audience is very, very active today, so I want to go ahead and honor that. Again, we appreciate that. This actually gets the live stream to move better, and it provides good content for the foundation moving forward, because a lot of the questions that are asked here are going to be utilized later, for more people to see, and that is something that we truly appreciate. So we have a question here. Let's say of all the unseen realm theology, Do you find what's the one thing that you find the most challenging to wrestle with, Joel?
Mm.
I think right now, that's such a good question. I think right now, what I'm wrestling with in real time is honestly unseen realm and eschatology,
Ooh.
how this impacts our eschatological lenses, different positions, how to read Revelation, how to read end times narrative, how Jesus is talking about it, what's going on with all of that discourse. So I think that that is a personal challenge that I'm just walking through, and again, I'm being challenged to not acquiesce to a system. I might align with a particular system, but not allow myself to be afraid of the weaknesses of that system when the scriptures themselves aren't strong to support that area, if that makes sense. Um, and so that's something that I'm kind of working through right now.
It's really, really good. I got another one here, and like I said, let's try to do some sort of rapid fire before I give it back to you, Dina, so you can ask the last few questions yourself. I got one coming from Facebook, and this is really good, coming from Stan Roy Seringo. He says, historically, idols are carved images formed from physical material made to represent a deity in which Elohim are invoked to inhabit than worship. Is that still the working definition, or has it evolved to include anything that will replace Yahweh with, or even given more important, for example, a relationship, work, celebrity, social media, or are we conflating idolatry with bad priorities? That's a good question. Good question.
That's an excellent question. Excellent question. So when you're reading through Isaiah and Jeremiah, and you've got these prophetic critiques against idols, one of the things that often happens to criticize or critique the Deuteronomy 32 worldview, or the Divine Council worldview, is say, look, these idols are nothing. So if these idols are nothing, the gods are nothing, which is a misunderstanding of the ancient worldview of this writer actually did an excellent job of describing how idols were understood in that Old Testament context and in the New Testament. The idols were viewed as carved images, but they were viewed as the house of the deity. Yeah. And oftentimes there's a mouth infilling service that would allow the spiritual being to find residence inside of the idol. So what ends up happening is, in my view, from a biblical theological standpoint, we have the difference between a policy and a principle. And so you have in this setting the way the ancient Israelites and ancient Near Eastern people in the Greco-Roman context in the New Testament understood idolatry. But we have to remember that a lot of times what's happening in Scripture is this bifocal miracle, is what I call it. You have immediately an immediate context that the writers are writing to that makes sense to that audience, the church in Ephesus, the church in Corinth, to those that are living in exile, post and pre, and all of that. And simultaneously, Scripture is miraculous because it's speaking to us today. And so we have to do the work of contextualization, of understanding first and foremost how idolatry was viewed in the Old Testament. What were these carved images? How are they being utilized? And then from my vantage point, contextualizing it today to see how is the enemy using ancient vices and strategies, but repackaging them with new fancy packaging, right? So I mentioned it tonight in my session. The enemy is excellent in mass marketing sin. That is the goal of the dark powers.
Say that again.
The goal of the dark powers is to mass market sin, because the dark powers are not ontologically in the same category as Yahweh. Theologians refer to this as the incommunicable attributes of God. And I know we're supposed to be doing really quick. So the I can't help myself. The incommunicable
Go ahead. This is good.
The omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence, all-knowing, all-powerful, existing in all places at all times. The dark powers are not that. They are created beings. This is that Mike statement, Yahweh is Elohim, but no Elohim ever could be or is Yahweh. Yahweh is species unique. And so from Yahweh, all things are created. So what that means is that these beings have to be really ingenious in terms of how they scale sin. And so when we think of idolatry today with that Old Testament context in mind, I would say one of the biggest idols that we have in our world is right here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is a house. Did you guys know that? This is a house. This is a house to find all of our ambition. This is a
Oof.
house to find love and meaning. This is a house to find
Facts.
knowledge, right? And the thing is, any neutral thing that becomes an ultimate thing is always an idolatrous thing.
Idolatrous. Good.
And
Good
so
stuff.
we want to be careful.
Excellent. Now we got a few more, and because we don't want to overextend your your kindness here, but we also want to be able to serve our community, because that's what we do here. We minister to our Michael S. Heiser Foundation audience. I got another one here. It says, do the powers and authorities over the nation still have authority today? Question mark. And the follow-up question, I think this goes into the field of speculation, which is, if so, how much? Right. So the first one, I know that we can get a biblical answer. The second one will be a speculation, but it could be informed speculation as well.
Yeah, so the first one, do they still have authority today? In fact, in Stranger Theology, if you go and if you guys sign up for the Stranger Theology whole Substack thing, week 5, we're in a series about the gods of the nations right now, where I'm kind of working through that. We've actually pulled from some of Mike's work in Logos Bible Software and some of his articles. We've synthesized some of that. My live week 5 teaching is going to answer this question specifically, so I'll give you a little bit of a cheat answer on it. At the cross, this is what Colossians 1 tells us. At the cross, the dark powers were disarmed. So what does it mean that they were stripped and they were disarmed? The dark powers now no longer have legal obligation, legal rights, or the ability to blind the nations of the world. They no longer have that, which is why the gospel is so important. The proclamation of the gospel is so important. And these powers are not going down with the fight. So there's a brilliant scholar, Dr. Daniel Block, who wrote a book called Gods of the Nations. And in it, he kind of puts out this 3-part deal where he talks about, in a triangle, it'd be like you'd have the deity, you'd have the land, and you'd have the people, and they're all connected. And these gods of the nations were allocated to a national territory, so they're obsessive about their land. People are migratory, so you've got people that move around. And so these deities are territorial. They have no legal right, but they're basically squatters now. And they're creating chaos, and they're creating division amongst humanity. Meanwhile, look at what the gospel does. So in that 3-part movement, if the gods of the nations care about the land because they're so obsessed about their territory, and they're happy to take whatever people migrate into that land, look at what Yahweh does. Yahweh is like, I don't need the land, because he's the king of heaven and earth. Yahweh cares about the people.
Right.
And if you have the people, guess where the people go? All over the land.
All over the land. Yeah, it is very interesting that you say that, because one of the things that, when I use, I have a podcast based on, it's a biblical theology podcast in Spanish based on DCW and the unseen realm. And one of the things that I tell people is that Yahweh, the real state for Yahweh is our souls, our beings, because we are sacred space now when we come and put our loyalty and our trust in Him, and that transcends the national boundaries, and bringing everybody into the fold of the church, right? So it is a beautiful thing, and it is well said, man. I love the way that you unpack that. So many gold nuggets and good one-liners for us to pull out and make some killer merch. I'm always thinking marketing and tech, guys, plus theology. I'm a weird hybrid, right? But I do have one here, and this is a good one. And I think this is for the church. And this one, I know Kim, thank you for watching on Facebook. And Kim asked this 3 times. Kim made sure that we were not going to go without asking this question for her. It says, Dr. Muddamalle, how do you help the average reader understand that fighting the unseen battle is not just about praying against demons in their bedroom? I mean, that it is a global, universal, cosmic battle. Is not just to make sure that you don't get a stomach ache after you eat, or make sure that your finances stay on point. I mean, it is a global thing. Look at the repercussion of the unseen battle, wars around the world, all this demonic activity that is happening that we're just not able to see. I mean, we want to be able to give us that Gehazi moment where Gehazi moment when his eyes are open. The church needs that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say let's say a couple things to this. One is We have to be better readers of Genesis 1 through 12. If we read Genesis 1 through 12 with honesty and humility, you would see that the dark powers are absolutely passionate about destroying households and families. You've got a desire to separate Adam and Eve in a marital scenario. The enemy steps in when they're separated from each other, though Adam is close by. I always want to point that out. You have the first family conflict right out of Eden, which is between people, two siblings, that creates absolute chaos. You've got an issue in Genesis 6. In my book, The Unseen Battle, I actually argue that Genesis 6 is the origin story of human sex trafficking. You know,
say that again, man. That is gold.
Yeah, in Genesis 6, you have the sons of God see the daughters of man and take them. That those Hebrew phrases, see, take, desire, when they're presented together, are always negative. Like maybe I'm overstating it, but vast majority of the times it's negative. Eve sees of the fruit, desires of the fruit, takes of the fruit, chaos. The sons of God see of the women, desire of the women, take of the women, chaos. David and Bathsheba. David sees Bathsheba, desires Bathsheba, murders Uriah and takes her. Right? Like wild. So, and so this is again an indication of selfish ambition and vain conceit. And so in Genesis 6, there are particular language terms that are used for, I want to be careful because I know this is going to be live streamed in other places, where forceful action is taken violently against a woman. If you get my drift on that. That's actually not what is being implied with the language here. There's particular Hebrew words that are used to describe that. What's actually being described here is an exchange of goods, which is crazy to me. These women are viewed as goods. And in a patriarchal society, who would have authority over the women? The dads would. And if you read Genesis 6 in light of the Enochic tradition, what ends up happening? There's an exchange where the men receive these fathers, these households, they receive forbidden wisdom, knowledge, in exchange for the women.
Wow.
They literally trade and exchange, trafficked their daughters in exchange for knowledge and wisdom. The knowledge and wisdom actually just destroyed themselves, which is obviously what necessitates the flood of Genesis 6. And so I think if you just honestly take a look, the Tower of Babel, all of that, you would see that this isn't just about demons hiding underneath the table. It's not about, and I want to be careful, it's not simply about tarot cards and Ouija boards and energy crystals. These are all things that are pointing to a greater strategy. And once again, the strategy is to deceive the people made in the image and likeness of God. And so this is wholesale about the image bearers of God. That is what spiritual warfare is about. That's what it has been about. It is and will always be about, which is why the good news of the gospel is the means by which we witness of the already victory of Jesus, to invite those that are far off, Ephesians 2:18-22, to join their rightful place in the household of God.
Wow, that is I want to that is number one, man. That is phenomenal. Dina, I'm gonna give it back to you now. The questions. I mean, we had. I think I hit the highlight of the questions today. I want to say something about what you just said. We just had a let me see. That's not coming up. Let me go ahead and make sure I turn on my OLED. So we just started this channel. It's called the Mysterian Files. It's a small channel that we started. We do a live stream every Thursday at lunch. The guy who does this is the guy who runs the PhD program at Southern Evangelical Seminary. His name is Dr. Brian Hufflin, and he's not only a theologian, classical theologian, and a philosopher, but he is an Air Force chaplain, and he does postdoc work on UAP research. So it is a lot of fun. And one of the things that we were talking about is this, the manipulative deception that paranormal encounters come with, and how they are focused. These beings, these dark entities are focused to shift the narrative away from Jesus of Nazareth and deceive humankind. And that you just said in your last answer just clicked for me, because we were doing a live stream early on today, and it's almost like you keep. It's just an infinite ability to connect the dots if you live breathe the DCW. There is no other way around it. So I love that. Dina, I'll give it back to you now. Joel, I want to thank you for those answers. And I know that the audience is definitely grateful for your participation here. And Dina, we're grateful that you make this happen. By the way, everybody on the other side of the screen, also, what we do here, I mean, it's not free in a sense that there is a ton of resources that we spend making sure that this happen every week. So the best way for you to support is to go to the Michael S. Heiser Foundation. Is it .com or .org? .org. You can find a way to support there, but also go to drmsh.com and you can join the community there, because we are going to be going through Dr. Muddamalle's book, and you have to be part of the community to participate.
Yes. Well, any closing thoughts, Junior?
My closing thought is, Mike cared deeply about the text, and he wanted us to think honestly, and he wanted us to use logic and reason as we come to the scriptures. And so, here's the thing I'd ask you guys as you read through The Unseen Battle, as the author of the book, I would ask you not to buy into anything that I say just because I said it. I want you to chase down the scripture references. I want you to chase down footnotes. I want you to pray and ask the Spirit of God to illuminate this for you, so that you can understand and read the Bible on its own terms. Prayerfully, hopefully, I'm just kind of a helpful guide along the way to point you in that direction. That's what Mike was for me in so many ways. And so that would be just my closing thing as you guys get into the book, into the pages, into the footnotes, into the sidebars. Just don't take my word for it. Go back to the verses, chase down cross references, and read the Bible on its own terms.
Awesome. This is exactly what Mike would have said. So, you guys, our first book study episode or session will be May 7th. And Carrie Griffel put out a very helpful video of how to read Dr. Muddamalle's book. And go watch that. It's on all of our social media channels before you start the book. We sent out 6 books of The Unseen Battle today from our Michael S. Heiser Foundation store. That was very exciting to send 6 more books out. So we know that there's going to be quite a few of you joining this study. And you can get his book also on Amazon.com. Go to the Michael S. Heiser Foundation store.org store. You can order it there. We will send it out right away. And our first session is May 7th, and Dr. Muddamalle will be with us June, I believe, 25th for the very last session. And you can ask him all the questions you want. So if you want more of Dr. Muddamalle and you want to be able to have a front row seat with your question being answered by him, go ahead and join the DRMSH community or the Michael S. Heiser Foundation Substack, and you will be able to read the book along with me and Carrie Griffel, and we are going to have such a good time. Carrie is so thoughtful and so thorough and is a very deep thinker, and she will be challenging you all through this book. So go there and join us on May 7th for the book. Thank you, Joel. Thank you for being here. I love you. I love your family. And I just pray for you and your energy level. I think you're like your grandpa, actually. You're very much like your grandpa. So it's just so fun to see what you do and where you go, and where's Joel now in the world. So thank you so much for taking an hour and a half out and being with us. We love you and we support you. And yeah, we'll sign off now. Bye,
Let's
you guys.
go.
My honor.
Thank you. Bye.